Hello everybody. Today I'm going to do another unboxing, and pretty much in keeping with the theme that you may have discovered when you watched my most recent unboxings, it is the theme of space again. This time it's leaving Earth. So I'm just going to adjust my camera slightly. I did this on purpose because I wanted to start off with this really beautiful and very artsy cover. To be quite honest, I'm not somebody who's really into kind of like art, but this cover is just magnificent in its simplicity and in its composition, and it's just super. So this is Leaving Earth, and I'm going to do an unboxing, but just a brief one, and I need to warn you, this is not what you will get if you buy Leaving Earth in a shop. Because this is Leaving Earth with a twist. I bought this from BGG. It's secondhand, but you wouldn't notice looking at the components. It contains Leaving Earth. It contains the expansions Stations, and it contains the expansions Outer Planets, and it also contains the mini expansion Mercury, which comes with the base game as well. In addition, whoever owned the game downloaded several things from Board Game Geek and bequeathed them to me. Leaving Earth, a book of missions. Then here a board that you can use instead of the quite big footprint cards. Leaving Earth custom solo board for the base game. And version 2 is usable with the Outer Planets expansion. So we'll just go in here and take a look what this is. And it looks beautiful already. It is a player board. That you can take out and then cut out and put together. Really lovely done. It's really nice. So this is what I got as well, and I didn't have to pay extra for this. And the price was what you would be paying if the game was new, but of course the game is at the moment, it's not quite out of print, but in Europe there are no shops that carry it. Here you've got all of the components, and for someone like me who's obsessed with gaming, an added bonus, every single card is already sleeved. So, and it's high quality sleeving, so I don't have to worry about this at all. So you've got all of these cards. These are the different space agencies. You've got the Russian one, you've got NASA, you've got the, I think that's China, that's I believe France, and I forget which one is the third, which one is the fifth one. Here you've got the different missions, Venus Station, Man on Mars, so this is one deck of cards. So for those of you who don't know what Leaving Earth is, Leaving Earth has been described as a mathematical puzzle. And I think that this is, it's meant in a derogatory way. I don't understand, and I think it took me a while to realize that if somebody is a board gamer and calls something a puzzle, it's actually a negative term. I happen to like puzzles. I happen to like using my brain when I do stuff. And to me, looking at something which is quite static for a long period of time to figure out what to do, you could say that this is puzzly or playing a puzzle, but I actually enjoy that. So when I say this is like a puzzle, I actually don't mean it in a negative way. Here you've got the cheat sheets. I don't know what these are. They're outer planets, so this is part of the expansion. But what you essentially do is you have the job of putting together a space program. So you start in a fictitious era of Earth in 1956, where there is no space ships yet. So what you have to do is you have to essentially build a space program from scratch. And you do this by doing research into different types of spacecraft. So for example, here we've got Juno rockets. Sorry for the glare. Juno rockets, they tell you how they work. Then you have the Atlas rockets, Soyuz, Saturn, ion thrusters, life support is also a type of achievement. So basically, in order to send something up, you just basically need a rocket and something to put on the rocket to thrust into space. But if you want somebody to go there, a human being, they need life support. You might want the human being to come back, in which case you need to research and invent, as it were, re-entry. Landing would be nice too, because what's the point of re-entering if you then just crash? Rendezvous, that's if you want to have different things in space and then interact with each other. Surveying, you know, you just don't just want to go into space, you might want to look at one of the planets as well. Again, more rockets. You have the same ones because as you play with multiple people, then of course everyone can have those. It's not limited to just one person. Otherwise this would be terribly unfair. So basically you start by investing money into research, and then you also have to do testing. So basically when you start out and you say, okay, I want to research Juno rockets. When you first set out, you pay your money. I don't know how much they are. They're $10 million. And then you get 3 outcome cards with your Juno rocket. So essentially then, once you've done the research, once you've put your rocket together, you would like to know if it works. And again, these cards are sleeved. I love this. And you draw 3 cards and you put them on your rocket. So the first time you fire the rocket, you draw one of these cards and it is a success. Then you shuffle these. The next time you fire your rocket, you draw another card. And it's a success again. Are these all successes? Okay, then I can't really show you. Are these ordered? This was bought from a German guy, so I suppose... No, he didn't order them, so yeah, okay. So there are 3 ways in which a game, in which a try can end. You can either have a major failure. And a major failure in the case of a Juno rocket is an explosion that destroys the spacecraft. If the spacecraft was carrying a capsule with an astronaut, I'm afraid they are dead. Success, nothing happens, it launches and everything is fine, and then you have a minor failure, which in this case would rocket is damaged and provides no thrust, so it's basically just hanging there, or it, you know. So and if it's a success, then the rocket is discarded and it provides thrust. So let's say you have 3 cards. Let's say you have a minor failure and a success. No, you have a major failure, a success, and a minor failure. You don't know what you have because you have them face down. So the first time you launch, you take one of the cards and you look at it and it's a failure. So you have something happen to your rocket. In this case, it will just stay on the ground. So if you wanted to send something into space, it doesn't happen. But if it's a probe or a capsule that's strapped to the rocket, it will not be destroyed. Now you can do research to try and find out for $5 million why the failure happened. So it's like a post-mortem when you run a project. Why did it fail? And if you pay this, you remove this. So the next time you launch, you only have 2 cards to draw from. Take this one, it's a success, brilliant. In order to remove this, and it's advantageous to remove them as well, you have to pay 10. So again, you do research into why did it actually work? What can we learn from this? But it's a little more difficult because, as we all know, it's quite easy to analyze a problem and analyze failure, but to understand why something went well, and I know this because I do postmortems at work and sprint reviews in development teams, to understand why something went well as opposed to why it didn't go so well is sometimes a lot more difficult. And then we discard this if we pay the money. We have one left, so the next time we test, or the next time not only we test, but the next time we send up our Juno rocket, we have this one happen, and it's a major failure. We pay 5, and then we have no more outcomes. Every single time after this last time we've removed the last one, if we pay for it, we will always be successful launching this. So you don't know what you're going to get because you obviously mix all of these up, you shuffle them, and then you draw randomly for every single piece of research that you have. You draw the relevant number of outcome cards. So you want to do research, and then development, and then you also want to do refinement. You want to refine what you have just built. So that's what you do with these cards. And at the same time, what you're trying to do is you're trying to follow through all of the missions. And the mission could be to put a man on the moon, or the mission could be something a lot easier, which is to put, to just do some surveying of the moon, you know? So you just send something up into space, a probe, for example, and you just start doing surveying. So you have to have something that you can strap your probe to, and this needs to be able to launch. And you need to have the ability to survey, because that's a skill that you also have to learn first. So you have to do some research on how do you actually do surveying in space. Then here we've got the different cards. So for example, this is a Juno rocket. It tells you it weighs 1 unit and it has a thrust of 4. Then you can see how much you need to, how many of these rockets, for example, you need in order to lift a certain payload, including the rocket itself, because the rocket itself has its own weight which it has to lift off. So you've got rockets, here you've got space habitat. That is definitely, I would say, from an expansion. Over here we've got Kallisto, so these are samples you might have collected from Kallisto. Here you've got more outcome cards. I don't know what this is. This is the European Space Agency, ESA. So, like I said, there is stuff from the expansions in here as well. But as you can see, it's all ordered. We've got these really handy maneuver planning cards, because at some point you will start doing serious maths. So for example, here we've got a mission to Titan, you know, other things. And then of course, the real beauty as well, and you may have seen this if you've seen people play this game, or if you've seen pictures of the game, you put out your solar system. And you have these lovely cards for which there is no, at the moment there is nobody who provides card sleeves of this size. So you have Earth, you have lunar orbit, and you basically put this together so that it looks like Earth orbit happens, I think, somewhere here. Earth cycler. Essentially, you put all of this together. You've got the Mars orbit, Mercury orbit, suborbital flight. That happens somewhere in here. So you've got Earth orbit. Then you have Earth down here. Earth cycler is over here. Earth orbit, Venus, Mars, Mercury, lunar orbit, lunar flyby, Mars, Venus, inner planet transfer, Venus orbit, Mercury flyby, suborbital flight, Earth. I'm pretty sure that the moon is in here somewhere as well. You've got radiation, lunar flyby, lunar orbit, Earth orbit, moon. Here is the moon. Essentially, this is the moon. Works like this. So essentially build your sun's solar system, and for some cards you have several. So for example, you've got the moon, 1, 2, and you have the unexplored side up, because you don't know what Earth or what the moon will be like, so you can only see this if you explore. So you fly up and then you see what you've got and you turn it over, and if you do a survey you find out that microbes inhabit the lunar regolith. So there is life. And of course we all know that this isn't really true, but the idea is that at that stage you just have to give it some, I guess you just have to give it some leeway, because the game operates on the fact that you have to go there and you have to do surveying. So for example, there is the topic of sending someone to Venus. We all know that this would not work. You can't send somebody to Venus because Venus is essentially not inhabitable. But for the purpose of this game, you don't know this. You don't know that you can't inhabit Venus, because nobody's been there yet. Nobody has looked at it. Nobody knows what it's like. So that's, I guess, the little bit of suspense of disbelief that you have to do, because nobody knows what it's like. So you have to basically say, yeah, I will accept the fact that in this game I have to start suspending my disbelief and accept that we simply don't know yet. So you've got these cards which you basically use to build your planetary system. And when you do it right, and I obviously wasn't doing it right because I've never done it before, it actually looks like the solar system, and it looks really lovely as well. Let's see what we've got here. We've got more cards. They have this symbol, so I believe that they're from an expansion. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is, because I started to look at, I've watched a couple of videos to see how this game is actually played, because I'd never really heard of it before. But then when I saw a couple of playthroughs, I thought, okay, this is amazing, because I love the purity of concept of this game. I mean, the idea behind it is simple, but as we all know, it's a gift to be simple. And when I say that the game is simple, I don't want to say that the game is easy, or that whoever put it together didn't put much thought into it. I just think that it's the concept itself is so pure and so streamlined, and the idea is so easy to understand and to explain and to wrap your head around. You know, there is no Chrome in this game. You want to go somewhere, somebody tells you what your aim is, you should check out if there is life on Mars. So what you have to do is you have to think, okay, so think of it like a project. Somebody asks you, go out there, Kallisto, and tell me if there is mice on Larv, if there is life on Mars. So Kallisto would sit down and kind of go, okay, so what do I need to do to be able to answer this question? Well, first of all, I need to go to Mars. Okay, so I have to find out where Mars is. We all know where Mars is. Then I would need to know, okay, so in order to fly there, what would it take? You know, there is gravity involved, which you have to overcome, Earth's gravity. And then you need to traverse space to get there. That's going to take a little while, or a lot of time, depending on how far you need to travel. Then, of course, once you've traveled there, what do? You know, you have to then go down there somehow to survey and take samples. You know, you need to go there and take samples, because simply by looking at it, you will probably not know if there is life on Mars, because people have been looking at Mars for a very long time. But, you know, just by looking at it, you don't know. I don't know that just by looking at this chest, I can't tell you that there is life on this chest or not. Of course, there is life, because there will be bacteria, because I'm touching it now. So there are bacteria on this, but I can't see it by looking at it. I would have to dig deep. Okay, so I decide I need to go to Mars, so I need to traverse the universe. I need to find out how far it's away. I need to find out how to lift off from Earth. I need to be able to land. I need to be able to send out a probe. The probe needs to go there, pick up Earth samples, probably process them somehow, send data back, or come back, you know? So that's basically how this works. You have this project which you have to solve. And so I looked at the rule book, and the rule book starts out. This is a game about moving spacecraft from one location to another. To demonstrate, we shall require a spacecraft and a few locations. A spacecraft begins with a spacecraft card. Each of these cards has a corresponding spacecraft token. Find a spacecraft card and its token and set them on the table. By itself, a spacecraft card is not very useful. It represents a craft with no rockets, no capsules, no astronauts, no moon rocks, nothing at all. To be useful, it requires components. So it basically talks you through this, and it tells you to take the probe and just one of the Juno rockets and stack it on top of the spacecraft card. Leave the other two rockets aside for now. Location cards represent places a spacecraft can go to. Find the locations lunar orbit and moon, then place them on the table. The demonstration, and it says here, there are several different location cards for the moon. Any of them will do for this demonstration. The demonstration spacecraft begins in orbit around the moon. So place its token on, and I'm actually going to make a video going through all of this to see how they actually explain the game, because that's how they explain the game. This is how they start teaching you the game, basics of rocketry, and I'm going to do a video on this because I love how they are trying to teach people the game, and I think that this is important to show people how they do it. So I'm really looking forward to playing this, and I hope you will join me when I start my mission to leave Earth.